What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic, Shawn Porter claims he can knock out Terence Crawford. But has he even activated his mandatory yet? Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life before riches, huh? That life before riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing today. So, we're going to chop up this whole Shawn Porter, Terence Crawford situation and see what it's all about. All right, so I heard, it was on Fight Hype, the interview with Shawn Porter. And Shawn Porter made the comment that, he thinks he could knock out Terence Crawford. As you all know, this whole Shawn Porter, Terence Crawford situation has been in the media, and it's been going back and forth for several months at this point, okay? And Shawn Porter is, saying that he wants to fight Terence Crawford. And as you all know, Shawn Porter is actually a mandatory to fight Terence Crawford, just like he's a mandatory to fight Errol Spence as well. Now, I'm not sure I really understand what's going on with the Shawn Porter situation at this point, because they have offered Shawn Porter, that is Terence Crawford, top rank, they have offered Shawn Porter $2 million to take this fight, which actually that's actually equal to the highest payday that Shawn Porter has ever made in any fight at this point in his career. He made $2 million in the fight with Errol Spence in that unification bout, okay, where he lost his title to Errol Spence. So they've offered him $2 million. That is Terence Crawford and his camp, or his promotion, top rank, offered Shawn Porter $2 million for this mandatory fight. This is not even a unification fight. It's just a mandatory. Typically in a mandatory, 75-25, 75-30, or 75-35. Okay? But they've offered Shawn Porter $2 million. Shawn Porter has refused to accept this $2 million. And he's still going around talking about he wants to fight Terence Crawford. But yet he hasn't actually activated the mandatory yet. But he's out there acting as if Terence Crawford is avoiding him, because they don't want to offer him more than $2 million. So at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this: if you don't want to accept the $2 million, then keep it moving and move on to something else. Why are you out there acting as if Terence Crawford is avoiding you? You said you wanted to fight. You are the mandatory. They offered you a $2 million, which is above what the mandatory is supposed to get, okay? But yet still you don't want to take that $2 million, and you out here campaigning as if this is some kind of unification bout or something, and you're supposed to get paid more than the $2 million. I understand, you think you're worth more than $2 million, but we have to be realistic at the end of the day. You never received a $2 million, more than $2 million in any of your fights previously. You have an additional loss since then, but yet still you refuse to take this $2 million. And from what I'm hearing, I heard this on Goodfella Sports TV. Shout out to Goodfella Sports. I heard that they're offering, Shawn Porter saying he wants $3 million. I mean, I don't know how true that is. I mean, it is what it is. And that he came down to $2.5 million. So they offered him $2 million. First, as you all know, they was offering him $1 million or $1.5 million. Then it went to $2 million. And they're saying Shawn Porter came down from his $3 million request or demand to $2.5 million. So the difference between them is $500,000 at this point. So I mean, what's the difference between? So you're telling me that Shawn Porter doesn't want to take the fight because of an extra $500,000? And we got to make the point that this is a mandatory fight. that Shawn Porter can force the issue if he wants to. So this whole idea that, you know, somehow Shawn Porter, I mean, somehow Terence Crawford is avoiding Shawn Porter is nonsense. But you know, we hear this thing going around, people out there, saying that, Terence Crawford is avoiding Shawn Porter. I mean, now we're hearing, again that Terence Crawford is going to be fighting May 29th, and the rumors out there that it might be Jose Tito Lopez, which is a fight that Shawn Porter was supposed to be making with Jose Tito Lopez. Supposedly, that was some kind of a situation where Shawn Porter might be fighting Lopez as well. Prior to this rumor about him fighting Crawford, he was supposed to be fighting Shawn Porter. Now the question I gotta ask is this: is Shawn Porter gonna get $2 million to fight Lopez? And we all know that Lopez is in the PBC camp, and so is Shawn Porter. Is PBC gonna pay Shawn Porter $2 million to fight Jose Tito Lopez? No, it's not gonna happen. Okay, he won't even get $1 million for that fight. So at the end of the day, he's getting a bigger payday with Terence Crawford at $2 million than he would get in PBC. As a matter of fact, if Shawn Porter was to exercise a mandatory against Errol Spence, he won't get $2 million for that fight. Okay, so we see that you get the biggest payday on top from the top ranked people, but yes, still you don't want to take the fight. I mean, I'm not understanding that. If you can get more money, then go ahead and fight Lopez or fight Spence and get more money. Okay, who are you gonna fight? Who is Shawn Porter gonna fight at PBC to make $2 million? Somebody told me that. Who? And if you feel that you're worth more and you can get paid more, then well, forget about Terence Crawford and go ahead and get more from Errol Spence or from Lopez. Go ahead and fight those guys and get more money. I mean, why waste your time? Out there, trying to cast aspersions on Terence Crawford, okay, and saying that, they're trying to make it seem like Terence Crawford is avoiding you, okay, when in actuality, the ball is in your court and you're the one that can enforce the mandatory by activating it, which you haven't done. So, I'm not understanding what game Shawn Porter is playing at this point. A lot of people out there are making comments about this fight. We hear people like Blue Blood Sports out there talking about, if Terence Crawford fights Jose Tito Lopez, it's not acceptable, and that heavy is the head that wears the crown, and that Crawford needs to fight somebody acceptable. Okay, more competition. Well, why don't I don't hear Blue Blood Sports saying the same thing about Errol Spence? Okay, I don't hear Blue Blood Sports saying that heavy is the head that wear the crowns, because actually Errol Spence has 2 championships. I don't hear Blue Blood Sports out there saying that Errol Spence, should fight Terence Crawford, and that it's not acceptable if he doesn't fight anybody else. No, what he's saying is that he's basically co-signing the whole 60-40 split situation with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, and saying that Errol Spence should stick with the 60-40 and that Terence Crawford should accept that. Just like I'm here saying that Shawn Porter should accept the $2 million and go ahead and take that fight with Terence Crawford. Okay, if he's serious about fighting Crawford, but I don't think he's serious. Okay, so at the end of the day, supposedly we have $500,000 separating them, and Shawn Porter still hasn't activated the mandatory to this day. So I'm not sure how serious Shawn Porter really is about fighting Terence Crawford. And like I said, these guys out here making comments about, I'm even hearing guys out there talking about, Shawn Porter is that Shawn Porter is aggressively pursuing Terence Crawford. How are you aggressively pursuing Terence Crawford if you haven't activated the mandatory? There's no need to pursue Terence Crawford from Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter doesn't need to pursue Terence Crawford. All he has to do is activate the mandatory, and that fight is made. He's already going to get a guaranteed $2 million. So you have a $2 million incentive to activate your mandatory, and yet you're still not doing that. But you people out there talking about Shawn Porter is aggressively pursuing Terence Crawford. Stop with the nonsense, people. Okay? I mean, and these same people out there talking about making videos about how the Terence Crawford Errol Spence fight is going to go, when we already know that Errol Spence don't want no part of Terence Crawford, and he's out there saying, 60-40, then he went from 60-40 to 70-30, and now we see video with Errol Spence out there talking about 80-20. So, I mean, these guys, I mean, these people out there talking about boxing, these commentators, I mean, they're not really being honest with the fans, and they're just basically fanboys, okay? And that's basically what it comes down to, okay? We all know that Terence Crawford is ready for all smoke with any of these guys, and none of them have stepped up to the plate. And we see the games that they're playing, these silly games that we see the same game that Errol Spence is playing with the 60-40, 80-20. Now he's talking about 80-20, other side of the street. He want to go to his ranch. He don't want to talk about Terence Crawford. He want to go to his ranch and play with his horses and his dogs and his whatever. Doesn't want to hear anything about. He doesn't know why Crawford is coming to his fights. And we hear all of this nonsense, and yet still people are out there talking about, Errol Spence. People co-sign all of that. Okay, and and when Crawford, gets fed up with all this nonsense and say, look, man, I'm not even going to ask for the Terence. I'm not even going to ask for the Errol Spence fight anymore. They say, oh, he doesn't want to fight. He's ducking Terrence Spence, or he's ducking Shawn Porter. I mean, the level of idiocy that these guys are out here, putting out is remarkable, man. I mean, these people are just plain silly at this point, okay? So the bottom line is, unless Shawn Porter is going to activate his mandatory and get the fight with Terence Crawford, you need to stop talking and stop running his mouth, okay? Because, trying to put pressure on Crawford to pay them more, Top Rank to pay more money, by saying that, trying to make it seem like Crawford is ducking him is not really effective. It's not going to work, okay? What's going to happen is that he's going to end up not getting the fight with Crawford, okay? Because, again, the only way he's going to get that fight is activating the mandatory. They already offered him $2 million. If he doesn't activate the mandatory, the fight's not going to happen anyway, even if they offered him $10 million. So all of this talk is just talk, and unless he activates the mandatory, that's all it's going to be, is just talk. Okay, that's the end of the day. So Crawford is tired of waiting around for these guys. So he said he has a fight date May 29th, and if he's going to fight Lopez, then so be it. He's going to fight Lopez. Shawn Porter had his shot. He had his chance. He should went ahead and enforce his mandatory. He's not doing that. So he can stay on the sidelines and keep talking, or he can activate the mandatory. That's up to him. But what Crawford is doing in terms of going ahead and taking a fight for May 29th, like he said, he has a date May 29th. He hasn't announced the opponent yet, but hey, he has to do what he has to do. He got to keep active. He can't stay around waiting for these guys to get some cojones and step in the ring with him, okay? He got to keep active to keep his skills sharp. So he's going to take a fight, and while these guys are deciding whether or not they're going to fight him or not, then he's going to keep fighting. So, I mean, he got to get, at least if it's going to be Lopez, at least Lopez has the balls to step in the ring with Crawford, which is more than I can say for guys like Shawn Porter and Errol Spence. From what I'm hearing, PBC offered both Shawn Porter and Lopez, for their fight with Crawford. They basically told Top Rank they could have either Shawn Porter or Lopez, but it looks like, from what I'm hearing, is that Lopez is more affordable in that he's willing to accept whatever the money that they agreed on for the fight, where we see Shawn Porter is not willing to accept the $2 million. And so the fight is not happening between Shawn Porter. So basically what's going to happen, it looks like, is that Lopez is going to come in and take the food off of Shawn Porter's table and take that with him and go ahead and eat that food, because Shawn Porter is out there trying to, play games, and is not, activating the mandatory. And so, look like Terrence Crawford is just moving on with his career, and he's not willing to wait too much on Shawn Porter or Errol Spence or anybody else for that matter, which I don't really blame him for that. That's what he should do. Keep it moving. These guys are not really serious about fighting him. They're just playing games. We don't know what's going on with the Manny Pacquiao situation. That was supposed to be, that fight's supposed to be in negotiations. But we hear that Manny Pacquiao is coming out and saying that he's gonna fight, what's his name? Garcia. He's gonna fight Garcia instead, supposedly. We don't know how true that is, but that's what's out there. We're hearing that. So basically, he was supposed to get like $40 million. That is Pacquiao to fight Crawford, but it looks like he's gonna turn that down to fight Garcia instead. Mikey Garcia. From what we're hearing, so we don't know if that's actually what's going to happen, but we'll see how it all plays out. But we do know that Crawford has a date for May 29th, and we see Shawn Porter out there saying he's going to be ready in May 29th. Well, if you're going to be ready, Shawn Porter, activate the mandatory, accept the $2 million, and take the fight. Simple as that. You don't have any other options, as far as I can see, in terms of making that kind of money at PBC. You're not going to get that kind of money to fight Lopez. You're not going to get that kind of money to fight to rematch with Errol Spence, and your options are basically limited at this point. So we don't, what other fight does Shawn Porter have out there? Okay, so it is what it is. Now, as you all also heard, we're hearing that Yordenis Ugas is out, has came out and publicly said that he wants, it's been made it publicly known that he's asking for 50-50 in his fight with Errol Spence. So boom, there goes, Ugas, has pulled a page from Errol Spence's playbook and have made it, made the negotiations public. We don't know what was going on behind the scenes, why he decided to come public, but obviously he wasn't getting what he wanted in the negotiations, and he decided to make it public to put pressure on Spence by saying that he wants 50-50, which is his right to do. And to me, it seemed like he's pulling the ace on. I did a video about that earlier. You should take a look at that video about Ugas and Errol Spence and the 50-50 demand from Ugas. So Ugas is demanding 50-50 split. And at this point, that's an ace he done pulled on Errol Spence, and Errol Spence is gonna look silly actually if he decides to give Ugas 50-50 when he's been campaigning for almost a year now that he doesn't want to give Crawford 50-50, and has even said that he wants 60-40 in his favor, 70-30, and as this late video that just came out, which supposedly he did in January, he's saying he might make it 80-20. So now, to go and give Ugas 50-50 under those circumstances, when he's been going around talking about his 80-20, 70-30 with Terence Crawford, is going to make him look like what it is, that he's actually ducking Crawford. And we all know that's what's going on. But, a lot of people don't want to admit that. But, with this new wrinkle in the negotiations with Ugas, we're going to, it look like he's getting exposed, So, but that's what happens when you pull all this rhetoric that you see Errol Spence been pulling, just rhetoric, talking nonsense. And so now all of that, the chickens have come home to roost, and all of that rhetoric he's been spewing is coming back to haunt him now in his negotiations with Yordenis Ugas. And so Ugas basically pulled the ace on Errol Spence, and it looks like that fight. A lot of people was asking, well, why hasn't this fight been announced yet? And so now we know why it hasn't been announced. Ugas won 50-50, and Errol Spence, is gonna have to either accept it, or maybe the fight is not going to happen. I mean, he doesn't have much. That is Errol Spence doesn't really have much options at this point in his career. Who is going to fight if he doesn't get the Ugas fight or this Crawford fight? He doesn't really have much options. I mean, Ugas has leverage at this point, and he decided to use his leverage, and so he got Errol Spence boxed into a corner. And so, if Errol Spence turns right, Crawford is there. If he turns left, Ugas is there. So what is he going to do? Is he going to accept the 50-50 when he wouldn't accept it from Crawford and make himself look like a hypocrite and like he's ducking Crawford? Or is he going to stand on his square and say, no, he's not going to take the fight if Ugas won 50-50? We see a lot of his fans out there like Blue Blood Sports, who's always making excuses for Errol Spence. He's out there. We saw he did this video about this whole situation with Ugas, and he looked depressed, when he had to relay this news to his fans. He was very low key, looked depressed, saying he's hoping that somehow or the other somebody can convince Ugas to accept less. Yeah, I mean, these guys are such hypocrites. They want Ugas to accept less, but they don't want Errol Spence to accept less, But Ugas should accept less. I mean, these guys are jokers, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, but again, these guys are just fanboys. They're not really boxing pundits like they claim, or boxing commentators. There's fanboys out there with a mic, and they out there, doing their best to protect their fighter, whoever that might be, whether it's Errol Spence, Shawn Porter, or whoever. But at the end of the day, people, this is what's going on right now. So you heard it. Shawn Porter is out there saying that he could knock out Terence Crawford. I mean, that's funny. Who has Shawn Porter actually knocked out in this fight so far? He couldn't even knock out Formella. Okay, so I mean, I don't understand what Shawn Porter is talking about. You couldn't even knock out Sebastian Formella, but you're gonna knock out Terence Crawford. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess these guys were willing to say anything. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the last person. I mean, who has Shawn Porter stopped? Who? Let's see. If I can remember, who has he actually stopped in any of his fights? Really? The last person he's. Oh yeah. Paulie Malignaggi, Paulie. He stopped Paulie, I believe. Malignaggi. They stopped that fight. He didn't knock him out. It was a technical stoppage. So that was the last guy he bullied and stopped. Okay, so after that, he hasn't come nowhere near to stopping anyone. So I don't know what in Porter's mind to think that he could knock out Terence Crawford. I mean, I think he's being delusional. But I mean, anything could happen. But come on, I mean, let's get real. So this is what that's the latest as far as I see with the Shawn Porter, Terence Crawford situation, which is fast becoming a comedy at this point. Okay, and so it is what it is. So we don't know if that fight is going to happen next with Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. If the Manny Pacquiao fight doesn't happen with Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao. So again, all these guys are basically doing everything they can to avoid Crawford, and we see it for what it is. So it is what it is. But yeah, that's all I have. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Okay. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out.